I used to joke with friends of mine who are pastors' kids, because I would say I was a principal's kid or a headmaster's kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, you have it easy. You only have to deal with it one day a week. I've got it 5 days a week.
Right. Yeah.
And there was something about you're always, I don't know if this is a skewed way of looking, but I felt like when people knew who my family was, I always had to stop and say, do you like me or hate me?
Mm-hmm.
There was always this evaluating, am I on your good side or bad side right now? So growing up in ministry, particularly in the Christian school setting, my parents were really good at trying to shelter us from those things, but you can't be the principal's kid and not feel it. And I'm a sensitive person, so I probably picked up on that more than the average person as well. But it was also really good because I'm probably a lot like my father, which is why I'm still in ministry. And
Do you have siblings too?
yeah,
How
so 2 siblings,
Okay.
and the middle child, which probably explains a lot too.
Right.
So grew up in the Christian school and were really active, and I saw my parents. My mom was an art teacher in the school as well, and we lived right next to the school. So I tell my children now I had to hike to school every day in snow and weather and bad, uphill both ways. But I just saw them pour their life into it, which was admirable
Yeah.
and really helpful to see how my dad really sacrificed a lot. And you also saw how people didn't appreciate the sacrifices, or there was a lot of criticism, critique. I was probably more of a perfectionist, so everything that I did, whether I excelled in sports or academics or whatever I did, was always seen through this lens. Well, that's because you're the headmaster's daughter, and there was never
It's
really
never about you.
right.
Yeah.
It was never about my own accomplishments or who I was, and that probably perpetuated the struggle of feeling the need to prove myself
Of course,
or
yeah.
or be affirmed. And so you saw how those things could play into your weaknesses or your strengths either way. And I actually distinctly remember being in college saying, I will never marry somebody in ministry. And then, because it was such a painful, hard experience in a lot of ways, and then probably within a week I stopped and said, wow, that was the dumbest thing I ever said. I want to be in ministry. Why wouldn't I marry somebody in ministry? So, but yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah. Good reflections, bad reflections as you think about the past. I think all of us can process that and say, yeah, there's some good that came out of it. I'm a military kid, so there's like a stigma that goes with that as well. It's like you're always the new kid and people think things about you, or even as you move out of the military lifestyle, people think, oh, this is what you must be like then. So I'm sure like having labels thrust upon you as you're growing up. Were you in New Jersey the entire time growing up?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so at least you were with people pretty consistently. Did you feel like they got to know the real you as opposed to the label of the headmaster's daughter?
I'm not even sure I knew the real me. So I think.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you're always trying to prove yourself or prove that you're not doing things for a certain reason, you get confused at some point too. And I think I had to struggle with figuring out, who am I? Am I doing things for the right reason? I think I loved the Lord. I wanted to walk with God. But you also felt the pressure of being in the limelight too, or that people were looking at you and your behavior reflected your family or the ministry.
How much did you understand the gospel that sort of energizes you and motivates you now? Those high school years or whatever.
Was there a certain time that you remember God saving you?
That's a really interesting question too. I think there are seasons. Like I'm sure there are moments in my elementary years where I accepted the Lord. But I look at it and say there were realizations throughout my life of deeper sanctification or deeper understanding, especially probably in college, of sin and grace. So when you grow up in a Christian home, I certainly knew I was a sinner, but I think I didn't understand grace as well. Because I'm probably more driven, so it felt works-oriented. And though I knew it wasn't my works, it was also hard to, when you're good at things, and when I excelled as a student, and I wanted to do what was good. And so it was hard to figure out when I was putting hope in my own goodness and when I was really letting God work.